is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. Welcome to the Triple Option. Here's your host, Paul Catalina.
Welcome in, alongside Pierre Noujaim, and I know that you're probably looking and going, Paul, you've got a lot of crap on the table today. That is true. I just wanted to highlight one of our sponsors real quick, Pierre, and I wish you were here with me to play these games, but it's Victory Tailgate. They're one of our sponsors. Emery's going to put the link in the description so you can go to them. But if you're a tailgater, this is great stuff. I've got a Florida State ring toss game here, you both have the rings. I've got Cowboys tic-tac-toe. Yeah. And I've got Baylor outside dice, lawn dice. So all that there. They have cornhole. They have a lot of cool stuff. They have tailgate tables and all of that. If you're a Bills fan, you can have one that you can jump through and shatter. But wanted to highlight them off the top of the show and show some of their wares sitting on the desk here. So, but thank you, Pierre, for joining me. We're going to start off, we'll get to the AP poll, but we're going to start off with a quick little Olympic recap because since they're over, I'm a big Olympics guy. I know you're a big Olympics guy, and it's over now. I'm sad that it's over, but looking forward to LA, where maybe we can just go because it's, it's not as expensive to get from here to LA as it is to get to Paris, although based on California prices, we're probably underselling that a little bit. But your thoughts on us tying with China for the golds first? Is there a bit of delay here?
It doesn't leave me feeling great. I have to be honest, but then we always, I absolutely. There might be a little delay, but I can hear you, buddy. Yeah, it's okay, but from what I gather, and I know that we tied with the Chinese for 40 total gold medals, but you kind of have to take it. I would have to, and I haven't done this research. I maybe should have done that before we got on the show here today, but in terms of the context of what those 40 gold medals are. Now, I know China swept the diving. I don't know. I saw them do a couple other things. It's like, what sport really, though, or what game is it really which they got the gold medals in? But at the end of the day, everybody's on an even playing field. Everybody trains for these specific events. So, I have to admit, I have a little bit of.
I think he's freezing up a little. Pierre, you're freezing up just a little bit. So, I'll move on. Yeah, it's the context. China swept the diving. We're never going to beat them in any diving event. Ever, ever, ever. It's not going to happen. Never once, ever. So we have to take those 8 medals out of what we can do next time. The silvers that we won, I think that silvers and bronze, that just shows you that we're right there on so many different things, and we dominated the total medal count as the USA. But men's and women's basketball was as dicey as a thing as we've seen in a long time for either one of those squads in the gold medal game. But I don't think that that's bad. I think that's good. I'm glad that, at least it's exciting. It's awesome that we can dominate in basketball, but also it gets kind of boring when you turn on a gold medal game and it's, a 30-point blowout, and you're like, well, are we the first, second, and third best team in the country and in the world? Let's see somebody who's legitimately close. And look, as a Spurs fan, I watched that game enthusiastically going, oh, Wemby's a problem. He's going to be a problem. So it was exciting. I loved it. Both games were great. And, man, I am fired up I'm fired up that we won, and I'm even more fired up that Victor Wembanyama exists and plays for my Spurs.
Did you see the still photo of Victor Wembanyama trying to block Steph Curry's shot? That is going to be an all-time iconic sports photo. Knew the photographer's name who got it, so I can give him credit. Just unbelievable.
Yeah,
unbelievable shot.
I need to get a picture of it and hang it on the wall here in the studio. So it's unbelievable. Pierre, we're going to take our first break here.
Dare I say, I know the.
Yeah, because you're freezing up a little bit, and I'm a little worried that you might need to restart your router. So we're going to do that. Thanks for the crowd for bearing with us, but we're going to take the first break. Pierre, go restart your router and then jump back in. It shouldn't be anything other than just the link that Garrett sent you. So go ahead and restart the router. We're going to come back after a break here and continue this discussion. This is the Triple Option on 365 Sports.
Fantasy Sports EVO, the next evolution of daily fantasy sports. Tired of traditional fantasy sports where you spend hours upon hours studying individual players? EVO's unique team-based platform makes it easier than ever for all sports fans to play. No need to know individual players. Just choose your contest, select your teams, and enjoy the game. Whether you access our website from a desktop, mobile device, or the app, the experience is the same. EVO is for all sports.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. Welcome to the Triple Option. Here's your host, Paul Catalina.
Welcome back. We're going to wait for Pierre to pop up here on the screen, which he may do at any minute, but he had to refresh his interwebs, his router. Not everybody can have Unite Private Networks like we do, who's having great specials all the time. Go to uniteprivatenetworks.com and look them up in your area, especially here in Waco. By the way, Garrett, they're going to be going into I believe they're going to be going into the Alico building soon.
Oh,
yeah,
that will be a definite game changer.
So if you're in that, if you're in that building in the next few months, it's going to take a minute because it's an old building. But I believe they secured a deal to move into there, hopefully here soon. So I hope I'm not talking out of turn there, but they're a fantastic company, and I wish they ran the entire internet of the world. They're really, really good. To talk a little Olympics for a second, I am the biggest fan of our women's 4x4 and 4x1s team that you could ever possibly imagine. I was so fired up watching them. Our men on those same events are an absolute travesty. And how can you dominate in all these other events and then come in seventh and not know how to do baton because you don't practice together until you get to the Olympics? All these other countries are doing it one way and beating us. We need to do that. and pick who that we're going to have.
For me, like when it comes to the Olympics, and to me, I guess that's part of the reason I'm not really into them like most people is I feel like America should have the unfair advantage with everything you have at your disposal to train you to get prepared. So in an event like this, when you have world-class athletes, all the training, everything, it's completely inexcusable to lose. It really is.
Yeah. Yes. No, I know. But, other people are good at things too. So the AP poll is out, and it's the first one, and there's nothing that's like earth-shatteringly surprising to me in it. I thought Notre Dame was maybe a little bit high at 7, but I think given their schedule, if they go 10-2, they're in the playoff.
They should be.
Yeah, so if they go 10-2, they're in the playoff. LSU at 13, you're probably like...
That's about where they should be.
Yeah, you're probably like, should it be maybe lower? Like, give them a goal, to get to, but...
No, I think looking at that, I was interested to see where they put LSU. I know when the coaches poll came out, I believe they were ranked at 12th. So I figured somewhere in the ballpark between 12 to about 16 or 17 was the right place for them. I don't have a problem with where they're put. They're definitely going to have to earn. I mean, everybody's going to have to, but they have so many obstacles and things they're going to have to tie up on that defense to work their way up to actually make where they can even get into a position to compete for the SEC championship or to make the playoff. They have a lot of work to do.
And I will tell you this. I am fine with numbers 1 through 22. I would have Ohio State at 1 and Georgia at 2 because I think Ohio State's – I'm going to keep saying it. I think they're the best roster in college football right now. I mean, again, that might be splitting hairs with Georgia a little bit, but I think they have the best roster. I think the reason they're number 2 and Ohio State's or Georgia's number 1 is Kirby versus Ryan is a guy with jewelry and a guy without.
Well, yeah, so, I mean, Georgia's got the recent championships. If you look at last year, they had a legitimate reason to be in the playoff. They had more of an argument to get into the playoff. Also, I think if you look back to the year prior, it was Georgia head-to-head, which honestly, it comes down to that field goal. Ohio State should have won that game.
Yeah.
Easily could have won that game.
Yeah.
So that's really the first time Georgia's been tested like that in a couple years too.
I know this, that if it's Ohio State and TCU may not win the game, but they're not losing 65-7.
That game would have been actually competitive and a lot of fun to watch, not where everybody wanted to check out after a first quarter.
Yeah, it would not have been 65-7.
No.
Ohio State might still win. I don't know. Like, it would have been very, very competitive. That was those teams matched up well together.
I also think that would have been cool to watch Jim Knowles have that defense and be familiar with TCU and watch the parity and the volley back there between them as well.
Yeah. I'm fine with numbers 1 through 22. Fine. I don't think USC should be ranked. I don't think they should. I don't think they should be ranked over Memphis. I don't think Iowa should be ranked over Memphis. I'm fine with NC State at 24. So I'm fine with all that. And we bring back in Pierre now, who, let's see. Pierre, wave your hand, and let's see how if there's any latency there. They're way better. There we are. So how's the internet in Minnesota, Pierre? Is it still frozen over from the long winter?
I thought it was working fine. It seemed to be working fine before we hopped on, but sometimes you got to give it the old reboot and hopefully it works for the best. And it sounds like it's gotten a little bit better.
Look, you have a live-in girlfriend now, so I'm just assuming that this internet problem is not due to why your internet slowed down when you did not have a live-in girlfriend. So I'm leaving
that's who I'm blaming. 100%. Okay. She's going to take all full blame.
I was kind of blaming your previous habits, but I don't know. I mean, we don't have to talk about what those are, but.
There's not enough bandwidth. Paul. It's bandwidth is a precious commodity around these parts.
Yeah. Well, Pierre, you and I were talking about the AP poll earlier. You had a problem with Notre Dame at 7. Go into that a little bit.
It was merely because I feel like the Notre Dame train, the hype surrounding Notre Dame just seems to me every single year. We do this every single year. It's not to say that they don't have a good team or a team that's worthy of being in a top 10 position to begin the season. It's just why do I feel like we do this every year with Notre Dame where, Notre Dame feels like it lives up or it's there because of its name time and again? It feels like this is a different world entirely of college football where Notre Dame, the name of Notre Dame, in my opinion, doesn't have the cachet that it used to from back in the day. So I feel like Notre Dame still lives on its name a little bit. And that's probably, I might sound a little bit, I might sound a little bitter about that. And that I have nothing against Notre Dame personally. I have no issue with Notre Dame. I'm not a Notre Dame hater, but it's just how many times have I seen Notre Dame get ranked in the top 10 only for them to either lose their second game or lose a game that they weren't supposed to lose, to tumble down the standings. And then by the end of the season, like, well, is Notre Dame making a comeback here? I feel like we've done this far too often with Notre Dame, and that's kind of where I stand with them.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I liked everything in this poll except for Notre Dame. I thought like they could be a little lower, but if they go 10-2, they're in the playoff. And some of this is a projection of what people think are going to be the playoff teams, which I think Notre Dame again at 10-2 is definitely a playoff team. And I have a bigger problem with USC being ranked at all after being a 5-loss team last year and losing your best player. The guy who kept you from being an 8-loss team was Caleb Williams. He's gone now. Why are you even in the poll when a school like Memphis could be in there? Or, NC State could be higher. Boise State deserves a look at the bottom of the poll. Maybe Liberty. Like there's I don't know. And like, I also am not nuts about Iowa at 25 because I think that their whole world's about to change, but they've kind of maybe earned that because they've been able to keep their head above water for a while. Yeah. Go ahead and finish your thought.
When you look at the poll.
Yeah. Go ahead, Pierre.
Yeah. The only thing I would say is Texas comes into the SEC with a lot of hype, and understandably so. I understand why people are excited about Texas, but it's like, are they going to be able to live up to the SEC? And how are they going to arcs in the SEC?
Yeah. All right, Pierre, we're just going to have to let you go because this is freezing up too much, so we're going to roll on. So goodbye to Pierre, but we'll bring back Pierre later on. I hate to do this. God, I hate losing him because it's so good we have him on. But it's okay. It's okay. We forge ahead. Garrett, you and I can discuss things.
Let's do it.
Since we're here. And we're used to rolling on. For my apologies to that. We just had a little internet snafu in Minnesota, which we have no control over. Let's get on the ball, Tim Waltz, and fix it. So, but I do like USC. There's only one team in the poll this year. I really do feel like is in the poll because of like their name, and it's USC. I look at it, and this is one of the most honestly well thought out polls by the AP ever. Mm-hmm. Usually it's very, very lazy.
Correct.
Very lazy. Like, let's do this. For years they put Texas in at 12 when Texas, look, even in a good year, they weren't the 12th, a better year that they had. They weren't the 12th best team in the country.
No.
So starting them out that way was ridiculous, and it felt like nobody was watching. Now I do feel like you've got more of the media watching because I'm fine with Georgia at 1. Utah at 12 is a great spot for them, the highest ranked Big 12 team. Kansas State at 18, good. Oklahoma State 17, good. I'm good with all that. Clemson at 14, I think that's right for Clemson. I think NC State deserves to be a little higher. I think Miami at 19 is fair. All of this. A&M at 20 might be a little bit high. So a little bit, but if you look at A&M's schedule, there's no reason they shouldn't be 20th.
So looking at that, if you said North Carolina State is a little too low for you, would you flip them with like A&M?
Yeah,
is there somebody you would move up to?
I feel more confident in NC State being the 20th best team than I do in A&M right now.
Was that prior or after the Ruben Owens issue?
I don't think it did make a difference to me either way. Like they're deep at running back. Ruben Owens Now, the bummer about Ruben Owens is you're probably about to see Ruben Owens maybe take over a little bit this year.
You were.
Like, that was kind of the thing. But with Amari Daniels back and Le'Veon Moss, and they have E.J. Smith that can now step up into a third-string role.
Oh, I forgot he was there.
So, yeah, I mean, like, they're not devoid of talent there at running back. It's not a ridiculously non-deep situation. So, I think that there's opportunity there, right, for for A&M to be, but I think that it's fair. There's nothing that irritates me outside of that USC thing. Matthew doesn't think they deserve a ranking at all, but I could also be sold on that argument. I really could. And that I really like they have to prove an argument.
I would have left them out. Honestly, I think that you could make a good, and honestly, looking at this, dude, the only reason they're ranked there is because that week 1 game against LSU. TV wants a top 25 matchup in Vegas. Otherwise, USC would not be in this poll because they did not prove it last year. Like you said, they lost Caleb Williams. Miller Moss is unproven. Outside of Zachariah Branch, we don't know what true playmakers you have. You have a new defensive coordinator coming in with a lot to fix there because it's been completely abysmal going back to Oklahoma with Alex Grinch. While Bear Alexander is there, he's been inconsistent. So I don't know what to make of it. I really feel like that's the only reason USC made this. And the way things are going now with TV having such a control and it's all about matchups and eyeballs, I think that's really the reason why the Trojans are at number 23.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so. I think you're right. But if you look at just based on the AP poll alone, not the coaches poll, which had a bunch more teams getting votes. It also has a few more people that I believe do vote in it. Or no, maybe less. But the AP poll, I could see Louisville got 111 votes. I could see putting them anywhere in that 20 to 25 range. Virginia Tech got 77.
Virginia Tech should be ranked.
And that they should be ranked over USC for sure. And you could make the argument that them and A&M should be like in the same spot, I think, based on A&M's previous performance. Boise State, SMU, Iowa State, Liberty. No. I have a problem with the schedule. West Virginia, I have more faith in West Virginia than I do in USC right now. Now, could USC surprise everybody? Sure.
They could.
Sure.
I think that's the hope.
But again, based on last year, based on what we know about them right now in this moment, with a new defensive coordinator, with a new quarterback, with Caleb Williams gone, I mean, they're not 23rd to start out this season. That's not what they are to me.
Are you surprised at all? Because all of the preseason polls coming out and everybody looking at how teams are going to be stacked up in conference, everybody's looking at Utah and Kansas State are your number one, and however you want to put it, they're your top 2 teams of the Big 12. Considering most people's opinion. But on here, you have Oklahoma State ranked ahead, which has the Pokes as the number 2 team behind Utah in the Big 12. What are your thoughts on having Oklahoma State ahead of Kansas State in this? And is it just the Ollie Gordon factor or what?
I don't have. I mean, personally, you know
I know
me.
I don't either.
I don't. I mean, I think they're right. They're right there together. So it's probably not Ollie Gordon. It's more Mike Gundy versus Chris Klieman.
Right.
I think that's what it is. I think sometimes you see teams ranked ahead. I think you're looking at, this is a difference between coaches. Like, who has done more than the other one. For example, ranking Alabama ahead of Ole Miss. On paper right now, Ole Miss might actually be a little bit better than Alabama, except for the fact that Kalen DeBoer just played the national championship game, and Lane Kiffin has not done that.
Yeah.
So Notre Dame, Penn State, right there together, they're about the same to me. That's...
They really are eerily similar with not just how they're built, but their success, and they're always on the outside in. They can compete, but if Notre Dame was to face Ohio State or Michigan, they always struggle mightily, where Penn State isn't able to get over that hump either. But they're both these brands who have had iconic coaches and stuff, and they kind of get the benefit of the doubt there, from my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. By the way, we're not going to see Pierre for about 3 weeks because he's going to Tokyo. So
I want to go to Japan so bad.
Yeah, I'm going to tell him right now, enjoy the toilets.
Of course you are.
Enjoy the toilets. It's going to change. They'll change your life. So, yeah. Yeah. So, but anyway, we'll figure out. Pierre's schedule's going to change with us anyway, so he might be on a different day, and we'll rotate things back around. Football season's coming up. All right, Gary, let's take another break. When we come back, the NFL preseason has kind of now begun. Let's talk about some of the guys, the rookies that played well. Not that the preseason means much, but just to kind of update people and see, like, what are we excited about? Like, what could be good? I know that you, in particular, as a Commanders fan and someone who, if Jaden Daniels needs you to make something go away for him, would at least consider it.
I got you, Jaden.
Yo, so you're not even considering it. It just
At this point,
depends on
Paul,
what it is.
As a Washington fan who has just been hoping for some glimpse of even a spark of hope, there's no question.
All right,
There's
so
no question.
you would be like his Michael Cohen. Like, you would go ahead and do that. Okay.
Let's ride, Jaden.
All right. I mean, everybody needs a fixer.
Everybody
needs a fixer. And look, he's in the right place to find one, though.
Yes, he is.
If he gets down to you, we're probably in trouble.
We're in trouble.
But he's in Washington, D.C. Hey, I need you to fix this. Here's the thing about Jaden Daniels. Probably will never need that to happen.
No.
He's a great guy. But we'll talk about some of those quarterbacks, some of the guys who showed out, some of the people. I'm not surprised to hear that they're doing well in spite of their draft position. It's sometimes, you see this and you're like, man, I don't know. I'm just a guy watching this game, but number 4 down there is kicking ass. And then you watch him get drafted like, oh, 5th round, 6th round. That's weird. I mean, when I watched that game, he played against a team full of NFL players. He made like 17 tackles, but what do I know? I'm not a guy who,
I'm not a talent evaluator.
I'm not a talent evaluator. And then all of a sudden they get him and they're like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Cincinnati, I'll tell you this. This is the award, and we're going to name it from now on. Ivan Pace Jr. was a linebacker for Cincinnati 2 years ago. You remember Ivan Pace Jr.?
Yeah.
He went undrafted last year, and now the Vikings can't live without him. He's that good. And if you had watched Cincinnati under Luke Fickell at any point or any game Ivan Pace Jr. played in his career, you'd be like, man, that he's everywhere. He's everywhere. And then, linebackers are the ones who kind of get like this where you're like, oh, well, we'll push him back. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, he makes all the tackles that can be made.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, well, we need this guy. So we'll come back. We'll talk about that. This is 365 Sports.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. Welcome to the Triple Option. Here's your host, Paul Catalina.
Welcome back, Paul Catalina, Garrett Ross, who you'll hear kind of disembodied today.
A little bit.
Again, if you're wondering what all this stuff is on the desk, this is from Victory Tailgate. Look, you've got tailgate season coming up right now. And these are things that are smaller. Like, some of the things are big, like a cornhole set. But if you want a smaller, more compact thing that you can put in, like this tic-tac-toe here, you play on the table. This is lawn dice. All you need is grass. And then here is this little FSU ring toss game that we have as well. So a rings game. So FSU Baylor Cowboys, they have tons of stuff. They have tables. They've got yoga mats if you're into that. They've got tons and tons of stuff. The link is in the description. Emery's going to put it there so that you can click on and go find your team. They've got tons of it, whether it's NFL, Major League Baseball, college football, the NHL, NBA. Jack already beat me in the ring game once today. This is a very good drinking game, this ring one right here. It's got 5 little dots on it, and you could, like, put 5 shots on there.
Yeah.
And see, how far it goes. So,
something to work with.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's Emery's already like, I know he's like, okay, well, I'll beat you, Paul, in this thing.
Emery's the champ.
We'll get some whiskey in here and do that one day. I think that's something we should do before the season starts. Is just me versus Emery versus Jack versus you. We'll just do that, and then we'll have people drive us home.
I like it. I'm all for this.
Yeah, just doing that. So, just cool stuff you can put on the table or play in the yard. I thought it was a really great sponsor and perfect for us. Mm-hmm. And so I reached out to them, and they've been great. And so I wanted to kind of make a little push for them as we get close to tailgate season. So you know how fast this got here. I made the call last week and got it 3 days later. So
nice. Right
there, sitting in my garage for a couple of days before I could bring it here. I was not allowed to bring it in the house, but it's.
Oh, come on. You can bring it in the house.
No. She says, is this for you guys to play with at work? And I was like,
keep your toys in the garage.
Yeah, but I want the Florida State thing to live at my house, at our house, where all my other Florida State stuff lives. Except for that helmet over there.
It's over yonder.
It's over there. So anyway, Garrett, NFL preseason. Let's talk about Jaden Daniels. Are you like, if the preseason is not something you can judge on?
Correct.
Except for the fact that, okay, well, it looks like he's comfortable. He and Caleb Williams, above any of the other quarterbacks, really need to start right away based on what their situations are in those places, or pretty close to right away. Caleb Williams looked good too. But Jaden Daniels, this is kind of, feels like you're hoping it's not a mirage, that you're walking out of the desert into the oasis.
You're really not. I know I got excited when I got up Saturday morning and got on social media, and I saw Jaden Daniels rolling up in the Doug Williams throwback, and I'm just thinking Eddie Robinson, Grambling, Louisiana, the Super Bowl, Doug didn't get his dues, Jaden going in. And look, man, I think people in the media have kind of changed and adjusted how we view these and what people do in those games. So for Jaden heading into this, I think for me it was I knew he probably wasn't going to get more than one series. It's really unnecessary to do that, but you wanted to see the efficiency. And not everybody's going to be – the defenses aren't going to be throwing their reads. They're not going to be blitzing or anything, but he was out there. They put together a nice drive. They found themselves in a 3rd and 6 situation, and they called a screenplay. And Jaden comes up to the line. He reads the defense, and he sees that the secondary is crept up real close, and he calls an audible. And doing this, Sam Causey, the offensive lineman, granted, Washington was without 3 of their starting offensive linemen while this happened. Jaden saw the defense, and he called the audible, and he just threw a bomb down the sideline, and the receiver caught it. It was perfectly placed, and it got him within like the 5-yard line. And the next play, Jaden uses his legs, and it was almost vintage, exactly what you saw him do week in and week out at LSU, which won him the Heisman Trophy. Now, if you go back and listen to Dan Quinn, he was asked about it, and he said, that was a great play. But at the same time, it felt he referred to Top Gun and Maverick like asking for forgiveness and not for permission to do it. And it's one of those things where that is cool and his response is cool, but if he doesn't connect on that throw or something happens, it is a totally different dynamic. So it was one of those where everything fell into place. It was cool to see. I was happy to see Jaden have success, but at the same time, you got to be realistic. You understand it's one drive. It's everybody's throwing vanilla stuff out there. But it was cool to see. And it gave hope. It gave hope because you haven't had anything exciting in Washington in, 25 years. By
the way, I'm going to throw out some names that we're familiar with that are young players or rookies. Ben Sinnott, 3 catches in that game. Here's another one. On the other side for the Jets, Adrian Martinez, former Nebraska and Kansas State quarterback, who was just the recent UFL MVP. He played in that game and was pretty efficient at 6 of 10 passing. So there's something to look at. Now, the other buzz about the big quarterback year coming out was J.J. McCarthy in Minnesota was throwing dimes. And I think J.J. McCarthy is going to have the second biggest chip on his shoulder after Michael Penix Jr., because a lot of people were like, oh, well, he shouldn't have been drafted that high or whatever. The Falcons probably shouldn't have drafted Michael Penix with the investment they have in Kirk Cousins. They did what they did, so he'll probably have a big chip on his shoulder. But J.J. McCarthy should, because people like us were like, well, we don't know about this guy. Now, the argument against it was Michigan was so good that they didn't have to throw the ball that much. And then all of a sudden you start seeing him throw the ball. It's like, oh, this guy's got a bit of a cannon.
Well, I think for him, he wasn't asked because they were so efficient. They were so good at the running back room. You could rotate Edwards. You could have Corum out there as well. But when he was asked to throw, if you go back and look, him and Roman Wilson had a great connection. Like they came up with multiple big plays throughout the season. It just wasn't something they were asked to do on a consistent basis. So that was one I was really intrigued with, because I wanted to see because this is going to be. Like, I knew as a Washington fan, and everybody knows, but you know what you're going to get with Kirk Cousins. So I want to see Justin Jefferson have success. I want to see him have a quarterback who can get him the ball and make big plays. And watching what J.J. McCarthy was able to do in the limited amount of time out there, it gave me confidence. I think that J.J. can be in position to put the ball within even if you get it with like a 3-yard radius, Justin Jefferson's going to make the catch. But I thought it was cool. If you go back and watch, J.J. McCarthy had this one highlight where he threw a bomb, and NFL Network was on air with Justin Jefferson at the time, and he sees him. He sees the running back get the break, and he's like, oh, that's gone. That's touchdown. And he's all getting hyped. But it was cool, man. I think J.J. McCarthy showed what he's able to do. He's able to make the reads. Like I said, it's a small sample size. And you're right about Caleb Williams. Like, the hype train is already out of control with him. I was listening to the radio coming into work, and that's all the big talking heads was talking about was Caleb Williams and again, all of that.
He's in Chicago, which is one of the best sports markets, so everything that he does.
It's going to be amplified.
It's going to be really, really amplified with him. Now, before I get to the Cowboys and their ongoing Trey Lance experiment.
How'd you feel about how that ended?
I mean, look, I'll take the good with the bad. They picked off Stetson Bennett 4 times. You know. The Rams have a backup quarterback issue because Jimmy Garoppolo, who's always going to be the backup, is suspended for PEDs for a few games. Mm-hmm. So they have a backup quarterback issue right now, at least in the short term. But I'm going to tell you, and look, it's no secret that they've been one of the consistently best teams at building a roster the last decade. But the Eagles, when you want to get excited about rookies who may contribute, my beloved, one of my many sons, Johnny Wilson. Mm-hmm. He only had 1 catch for 7 yards, but apparently he's going to be the third receiver.
Right.
Anaya Smith played. He's going to play for them. And Will Shipley from Clemson played, and he's going to play for them. That is taking an offense that's already good, adding Saquon Barkley, and then rookies who are dynamic athletically, and then going to figure it out along the way with them. The Eagles, to me, are the Super Bowl favorite from the NFC right now, even over the 49ers, because whatever their issues, it appears that they've fixed them, at least roster-wise, and they did so well through the draft. So I would not sneeze at the Eagles and what they're going to be able to do this year at all. And when you think about, they already have Kenny Gainwell, they have Will Shipley, they have Anaya Smith. That new kickoff rule, once people figure it out, which was a disaster to watch this week, but once people figure it out, the Chiefs even did, I can't wait to talk about it with Smokey. They did what I called the Liberty Hill, because we did a game of China Spring at Liberty Hill, and on the kickoff, the opening kickoff of the game, China Spring kicked the ball off. It went to about between the 1.5 and 2 yard line. The kid from Liberty Hill picked it up, took 2 gigantic steps backwards, and kneeled it in the end zone. And it was 2-0.
Why would he do that?
I think his coach told him not to return it. And instead of fair catching it, he just, because it hit the ground in front of him and rolled a little bit, but he took 2 steps back, and it was 2-0, and then they're kicking off to China Spring. And so the opening kickoff is now for Liberty Hill, a team that it's total ball control.
Yes.
Like, that's what they do. It's total ball control.
It's like watching
offense.
Army or Navy.
Yeah. They're now, like, if they give up a touchdown, they're down 2 scores until China Spring makes a mistake. And this was not like the classic powerful Liberty Hill team. They were just kind of okay. And but the Chiefs did that thing. Mecole Hardman did it. He got the ball at the 1-yard line and then went backwards and took a knee, and that's a safety.
Yeah.
And he didn't understand the fair catch. Like you have to you can't fair catch, or you can, but then it's got to land in the zone. There's some complicated rules to it. Our friend Kyle Yeomans did a video on Instagram. I'm gonna try to get him to send us so that we can play it and explain the new kickoff rules. And it was very well done. So. Which that's what our buddy does, and because he.
I know. I was watching the Cowboys game just to watch Kyle for the most part.
Yeah. Actually, I'm going to start the text to him right now in the break. But yeah, that was what I took away from the preseason. There's a lot of young rookie linebackers and guys I thought were really impressive. If you want me to run somebody down for you, I'm happy to do it, because this is what I do in the preseason. I try to find what meaningful stats are and meaningful reps are, because you will hear, and I've done this for years at the Cowboys, there's going to be a guy who's like, oh my God, this guy's fantastic. And then they cut down to 53 and it's like, well, he was fantastic against all the other guys who weren't going to make the team.
Yeah.
So he's the best guy in the NFL who's not going to be on a team.
So one person I do have questions on, if the hype coming out of the weekend match, and I didn't get to see this game. I don't know if you did either, but the Saints with Spencer Rattler, because I've never really understood the hype. Like coming out of high school, you knew Spencer Rattler was really talented. I mean, even going back to the shows on whatever that was, Netflix or whatever. But he never really developed properly. And I thought it was interesting, watching him with Lincoln Riley. I know the Caleb Williams the timing kind of didn't work out there. And then he goes on to South Carolina, and man, he was good, but he got thrown into the game over the weekend, and all indications were that he balled out, looked really good. Now, I'm thinking, is there a fact to this, or is this just preseason where a guy who is above average at times is showing out against guys who aren't first-string caliber players?
That's what you have to do. Don't get
too – it's hard to –
you don't get too excited. Also, I don't think anybody's there's certain guys who are definitely not going full tilt.
No, no.
Okay, I have to play 2 series? Okay. Yeah. There we go.
But it's hard. That's what's hard, in those scenarios, to break down the realistic, what he was able to do versus the competition and everything out of that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I agree. All right, when we let's come back and wrap it up, Garrett. I'd like to tell this story about Rodney Hill, who's now at Arkansas, and he's taken a bit of a journey through maybe transferring to Florida A&M and Miami, and then not getting it all right. And the whole time I'm watching this going, man, this guy is a second-string running back at best. Honestly, at best, that's what he is. He's a very talented player, but he's a
second-string guy.
He's your second-string guy. There's nothing wrong with that. That's what he is. Really, really athletically gifted and can do some things, but he didn't really want to leave, but he got some bad advice. And we're going to wrap it up talking about some bad agents. This is 365 Sports.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. Welcome to the Triple Option. Here's your host, Paul Catalina.
Welcome back to the Triple Option. We had some Astros fans talking about the Astros in the chat, and I'd almost rather them talk about the election.
Oh,
given the fact that they just swept the Red Sox.
I knew there was something to this.
I'm not so much mad at the Astros as I am disappointed in the Red Sox for getting swept at home. And then now they have to go play them again in a week. So
yeah, that'll be fun.
Yeah.
At least they're not the White Sox.
No.
It could get worse.
The thing is that the Red Sox are almost really good. And they're like this. The Astros are also almost really good. They're almost really good. But they're not like where both fan bases want them.
Right.
Or, frankly, I say want them to be, emotionally need them to be.
Right. Where they set the bar.
We have a lot wrapped up in it. And I can see good things coming with the Red Sox. I can see it. I just don't know, given the fact that they're my cocaine, that I can wait. Like, because you don't, when you are that exhilarated by a thing, and that's why I use cocaine, nobody who's on cocaine, it's like, hey, we can get you cocaine in 2 hours. And you're like, 2 hours? No.
Not at all.
Like, no. I need it in 2 seconds. Like, this is why I'm this. So that's what the thing is. So, no, Alan, that was not a cheap shot. It was not a cheap shot at the Astros. I did record, and now I have to go through and edit an Astros podcast for something I'm involved in at Rogue Media, and I'm not happy about that either. Mm-hmm. Has nothing to do with the Astros, other than the fact that they're just the ones who happened to sweep the Red Sox. Now, yes, you're right, Garrett. It could have been the White Sox that swept the Red Sox, and that's a thing that I hope I never have to deal with.
Right.
The worst team, perhaps, in the history of Major League Baseball. Mm-hmm. It's happening right now. Yes. Grady Sizemore, who was a fantastic player until injuries derailed his career for Cleveland, is their new interim manager. Last year, he was an intern with the Diamondbacks, just learning how to do things, kind of like a GA, and now he's the manager of the White Sox.
Taking the Eric Spoelstra approach, huh?
Yeah, exactly. So, anyway, but, Kim Coltis has been sick. Oh, that's not good, Kim.
Not good.
Let's get you a bit. Look, we have football season coming up. We got to get you healthy. This is the time we need Kim locked in.
Need him and Brando to get right.
Yes. Hopefully we can see Brando sometime this week. Mm-hmm. Hopefully. But I want to talk about this Rodney Hill story because it was really like you knew this was going to happen, and this does happen.
Yeah.
We don't get details on it, but Rodney Hill blamed a bad agent. So his parents hired an agent who then texted coaches from other programs purporting to be Hill. Then it got back to Mike Norvell, and Mike Norvell's like, well, now you got to go.
Yeah.
And I understand that. Like, if you've got a player that's going and texting people saying that
if you don't want to be there, go.
Be there, go. And that was not the case. And so, the source in the article wouldn't say if there were other mitigating circumstances, but he was a 4-star recruit out of Statesboro, Georgia. He's a good player. He's good. But he committed at Florida A&M, and then Willie Simmons left to be the running backs coach at Duke. He then committed to Miami, decommitted once more, and returned to Florida A&M, where he said he took classes and worked out with the team before he got in the portal again, and now he's at Arkansas. And I really do hope for this kid that Arkansas works out for him because but it's very disappointing that these things go on. And his parents got him into this. Mm-hmm. But that's who you also have to prey on. And there's going to be people who get preyed on. And I think it's incumbent upon the NCAA, the conferences, the colleges, all these places to make sure that they just have a very easily accessible agent portal and that everybody knows about it from day one. And these are agents that are approved. They need to do, look, they're like the NFL. They're already getting to that point where they're basically saying, look, this guy's approved of the NFL. We'll let you talk to him. People know him. and they meet with agents so that people can know what their next step is if they hire one. Well, now they're hiring them before. So they need to make sure that even younger athletes are headed off of the path for making these mistakes, because your parents are also probably going to be new at this too. Mm-hmm. So that's the other thing. It's unfortunate that this family got preyed on by this bad actor, and now he's wound up in a place that he didn't necessarily want to be at first, but hopefully it works out for him.
No, and this was inevitable. It honestly is. These are the type of things you hate to see, but we see this all the time. I know, like for me personally, at covering recruiting, you come across kids who have handlers and different scenarios of people, or you have like the rogue, like random uncle who thinks he knows or wants to be an agent or something, gets in the mix and gives you bad advice. But I think a lot of it too is you find people who are in desperate situations or whatever, and you sell them. And it's crazy because you would love for a kid to have the input and not the parent to overstep, especially when it's the kid who put in the work and they're going to be the ones that get the benefit of it. So to me, it's kind of, I just think of it like from a parent's perspective. I would never want to do that to my kid. But unfortunately, these things are going to happen. I do like the idea of having a structured database, whether it's something the NCAA puts together, the schools in particular, or whether it's at a conference level where everybody goes and has a pool. But that's really the only way you're going to be able to do it is if you have certain verified people that everybody has to go through, and then you block out the outside. That's the only way you're going to be able to avoid these situations going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. It was just, it's one of those things that's going to happen. And Rodney Hill was unfortunately a victim of it. And people are naive, and you want to say like, oh, I'm going to get you more money. Your parents are like, okay, yeah, we got to sign with this guy. And look, Rodney Hill in 2 years at Florida State had, 77 carries and a couple touchdowns. And, it showed some flashes, but he was going to be behind Toafili. He was going to be behind Rodale Williams. He was going to be behind Cam Davis, who's their number one running back recruit this next year. So, yeah, I mean, like him transferring was not a surprise. The way it went down was a huge surprise. And look, sometimes they don't even want to transfer. No. And I'll just stay here and see how it goes. So, I hate this for that, but it's part of it. And the NFL's been really slow on business education for players, really slow on it and really bad on it. Like it's a thing in the last 5 years they've really taken a stand on after watching 100 years of players make terrible decisions.
Do you think we'll get to a point where like colleges put in a place for athletes where you have a financial like stability class,
financial literacy
program? Like did you
I think you have to have it. I think high schools need to have it.
They should, but
high schools need to have it. Now, when I was in high school, part of my economics class was financial literacy, and it was about 3 weeks of a section, but it wasn't a whole thing. But taught us how to make a budget,
basic stuff,
basic things. But I do think that. Yeah, we also, and this I don't like. We had 1 semester of government and 1 semester of economics.
My daughter's going through that this year. That's how it's set up, yeah.
I think that we could expand that a little bit more, where you could have 1 year dedicated to government, because we are clearly in a place in American culture right now where we don't fully understand as a collective how our government works.
No.
And we don't fully understand how business works. And as opposed to 4 months of your senior year, maybe spend some more time so that you're ready for it when you're out in the world. Because I can't tell you how many times I hear people saying things. I'm like, well, that's
not quite true.
It's not what it is, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's what people want you to think that it is, so that whatever their BS agenda is from whatever side of the aisle is on, that you'll freak out and be like, oh, they can just do this. You're like, well, no, they can't.
Yeah.
They thought of this like 200 years ago. They kind of thought of all these things. None of this stuff is new in human history. Like, it's all been kind of thought of. And then if there's like a new way to try to do that old thing, then usually we can figure out and head it off at the pass. But sometimes people are like, oh, but yeah. And so I think, absolutely they need to teach financial literacy in high schools. And I do think that there's a class called First Year Experience, and no, we cannot rent you an apartment. That's our daily. Is this the leasing
Right,
office?
every day.
I saw them coming in behind you
Every day.
I saw them. But I think that instead of fresh first year experience, which I know, especially for bigger schools, they have for kids that come from. If you had gone from Oglesby to Texas,
I can only imagine.
you would have needed
Yes.
this first year experience course to kind of, hey, when you walk into a room, there'll be more than 9 people in it.
Adapt.
Yeah. And even you probably walked in a room and like, why are there 9 people in here? This is insane.
Yeah, that's big numbers over there.
We only have 7 desks. What are these other people going to do? Who are these?
Send a
Who are
quarter.
these 2? Get
Catch
them
a
out of
quarter.
here. It's too crowded. But all that, there should be financial literacy in.
No, and you bring up a good point about the high school because, I mean, not just in general, it should be, but as NIL and everything's keep expanding in certain states to where it's now trickled into high school, that's even better and more of an opportunity to put it in place. But I think you'll have better luck at the college level. But I do think that is something that I don't know how they would figure it out. But as this continues to evolve, I think that's something that definitely needs to be implemented across the board for everybody's safety, really.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, look, I'm 44. I've been living on my own for quite a long time, but I feel like I need a financial literacy course every now and again with, like one thing I'll tell you, I was caught completely flat-footed in my life with going from being a W-2, W-4
like
employee
a
to a 1099.
Yeah.
The first year I was like, it didn't even occur to me that it was different because we'd been coming off of being unemployed and I still had a W-2 that I had to, but then like it was half of a year of this and half a year of that. And my first year of doing that, like I remember just calling an accountant buddy of mine and going like, hey, I cannot, like I've been unemployed. I cannot pay you your normal fees. Like just send it to me.
Right.
And so I've learned, and now I have a new thing. I'm going to have to change a whole bunch of other stuff. And I kind of know how it works,
Right.
but I'm going to need a guy.
Absolutely.
And I don't mind going to a guy, but
If you can be taught it.
But
yes.
as a new opportunity has come to me, I'm going to need to learn how to funnel things
Correct.
in different directions. The other new thing that's happened in my life in the last 365 days is I have a wife. And so there was it was like 2 years of me going like, oh, I'm spending way too much money on this. Done, done. But it's a slow process. So yes, financial literacy is important, especially for these athletes. And I really think it's a big deal. And I feel bad for Rodney Hill. I feel bad for his parents. But also I feel worse for him because he's like, his parents come to him and go, hey, we talked to this guy. And you're like, okay, well, cool. But also it's parents like, oh, we can get more money out of this.
But I mean, if you do the work and you have the success on the field, the money's going to come at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So, be patient.
Yeah, absolutely. Be patient. We've got a really awesome show today.
We really do.
We have a really awesome show. And I say that most every day. But today, Ralph Russo at 3:30 to talk about the AP poll. Dan Hope on Ohio State. I guess at 3:45.
I believe it's 340.
3:40. Eli Letterman from ESPN at 4.